Level 1. Corridor of Terror. On January 18, 2016, at the La Quinta Inn in Mesa, Arizona, a night like any other in a quiet city, Daniel Shaver, a 26-year-old Texan, was in town for his job in pest control. That night, in his room, he was showing 2 air rifles used for his work to 2 other hotel guests. In a moment of thoughtlessness, perhaps slightly influenced by alcohol, he briefly pointed one out his room's window, unaware this act would trigger a horrific chain of events leading to his death. That night was one of those nights when a simple misunderstanding spiraled into an endless nightmare. Someone in a building across the street saw the shadow of a gun in the hotel window and, panicked, called the police. To the police, the report signaled a real threat. A potential sniper on the 5th floor. Minutes later, the 5th floor hallway was filled with officers, rifles drawn and ready. When Daniel and his companions stepped out of the room at police orders, they faced a hell of shouts and threats. The initial spark of tension was the nervous, violent yells of Sergeant Charles Langley, heard through Officer Brailsford's body camera. The commands were relentless, confusing, and contradictory. Hands behind your head. Cross your legs. If you make one wrong move, you might not survive. Daniel, visibly terrified and intoxicated, sobbed and pleaded, trying to follow every command to the letter. He was sprawled on the ground, crying, saying, "Please don't shoot me." The atmosphere was a powder keg. The officers were trained to see any movement as a threat, and Daniel, an unarmed civilian, just wanted to survive. The crisis grew more intense by the second. The commands were humiliating, a cruel psychological game. You have to crawl toward me on all 4s. Keep your legs crossed. If your hands drop from behind your head, we'll shoot. Any rational person knows crawling on all 4s with crossed legs and hands behind the head is nearly impossible. This was where tragedy became inevitable. Daniel, sobbing, began crawling down the hallway. His loose shorts were slipping off. For a split second, in an instinctive, unconscious move, he reached to pull them up. That was it. That was Daniel's entire mistake. But for Officer Philip Brailsford, that motion equaled reaching for a weapon. In an instant, Langley's shouts were drowned by gunfire. Officer Brailsford, without a moment's hesitation, pulled the trigger of his rifle. 5 shots. 5 rapid blasts that tore through the hallway's silence. Daniel's body jolted with each bullet and then lay still on the patterned hotel carpet. The sound of the shots pounded like a hammer in your head. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. Brailsford's chest camera captured it all. A desperate man's pleas, impossible commands, and then the barrage of bullets that ended everything. No weapon was found on Daniel. He was completely unarmed. He was just a terrified man trying to keep his shorts up. The aftermath was a deathly silence. The hallway, minutes before a stage for a ruthless psychological game, now resembled a sacrificial altar. Daniel Shaver's lifeless body lay on the ground, still meters from the officers he was crawling toward. Daniel Shaver, father of 2, was the sole victim that night. Officer Philip Brailsford was charged with second-degree murder. The fallout was devastating. When the police body camera footage was released, public outrage swept the nation. People worldwide watched the final minutes of a man begging for his life. Yet, the jury acquitted Brailsford of all charges, reasoning he acted per his training. Brailsford was later fired from the police department for poor performance, but never punished for the killing. Daniel's wife, Lainey Sweet, said with a broken heart, "My husband was murdered, and the justice system poured dirt on him." That video doesn't just show one man's death. It's a chilling document exposing how fear, flawed training, and a broken system can, in minutes, turn confusing commands into a death sentence, transforming a hotel hallway into a crime scene. Dive into danger. On June 11, 2014, in Sydney Harbour, Australia, Terry Tufferson dove off Manly Jump Rock, a popular spot for thrill seekers, with a GoPro strapped to his head.
All right, let's do this. Alright, ready?
As he entered the water, a great white shark charged toward him.
Shark! Shark!
Panicked, Terry flailed, striking the shark with his hand while letting out muffled screams. The shark circled him multiple times as he fought to keep it at bay. This video went viral on social media and totally freaked people out. Terry was caught between life and death, completely consumed by fear. The tiniest mistake, or a single move from the shark, could have ended his life right there. But luckily, the shark wasn't hungry and didn't attack.
Holy shit.
In the end, Terry made it out of the water and survived. Still, the whole thing turned into the biggest fear of his life. Level 2. Ghost in the Kitchen. On October 30, 2012, a video recorded by a mother of 2 children was uploaded to the internet. Its contents chillingly inexplicable. The footage begins with 2 young girls seated around a small plastic table in a dimly lit room playing innocently, the faint glow of a weak ceiling lamp casting long shadows. Behind one of the girls, a dark kitchen looms, barely visible in the frame. Suddenly, the girl facing the kitchen lifts her head, staring into the darkness, her expression a mix of fear and bewilderment.
I'm scared. It's okay.
I just turned off the lights, that's all.
Her sister and mother laugh, as if it's merely a childish prank, but it's no joke. The girl sees something in the kitchen again, and this time she can't hold back. With a scream and tears, she runs to her mother, who continues to chuckle, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the moment. The other sister, her back to the kitchen, oblivious to what her siblings saw, keeps playing and teasing until she, too, senses something behind her in the shadowed kitchen. When she turns, her face freezes in terror, her eyes wide with horror. A piercing scream erupts, raw and primal, and she leaps from her seat, fleeing to her mother. Both girls cling to her, sobbing, pleading, as if hiding from something unspeakably dreadful. The camera briefly pans toward the kitchen door, but nothing is clear, just darkness and a vague shadow that seems to shift for a fleeting moment. Chase. On April 10, 2016, at the Hakuba 47 ski resort in Japan, Australian snowboarder Kelly Murphy was enjoying the slopes, a popular spot for its scenic views. Singing and gliding, she was unaware her GoPro was capturing a terrifying moment. A 150-kilogram Japanese black bear chasing her down the slope. Oblivious to the danger, she continued until later, watching the footage, which shocked her and her audience.
Quack, 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 quack. 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 Baby, and quack, 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 quack. Work.
The bear eventually veered out of frame, but Kelly was shaken, having been completely unaware of the predator behind her. Ignorance is bliss. On January 4, 2010, on a crowded train from Guildford to London Waterloo, Lee Pomeroy, a 51-year-old IT consultant, was traveling with his 14-year-old son for a fun day in London the day before his 52nd birthday. At around 1 p.m., they boarded, unaware that Darren Pencil, a dangerous criminal with 25 prior convictions, was also on board. As Pomeroy and his son walked through the carriage, they inadvertently blocked Pencil's path. Agitated, Pencil snapped, "Ignorance is bliss," repeating it twice. Angered, Pomeroy demanded an apology, offended by the insult in front of his son. The argument escalated quickly, with Pencil hurling profanities. Pomeroy, described by his son as tall and confident, followed Pencil to the next carriage to continue the dispute. Pencil called his girlfriend, Chelsea Mitchell, saying, "I'm going to kill this man." A witness, Kaylee Carter, later testified the call seemed staged, but noted Pencil's fury. Seconds later, Pencil pulled a sharp object, Pomeroy shouting, "You touch me, and you'll see what happens at the next stop." He stabbed Pomeroy 18 times in a frenzied attack. Pomeroy tried to defend himself, but collapsed. At Clarendon Station, Pencil grabbed his sunglasses and phone, and fled. Passengers helped Pomeroy to Horsley Station, but paramedics couldn't save him. He died beside his son. The CCTV footage shown in court overwhelmed Pomeroy's family. His wife, Svetlana, wept, and many left the room. Pencil, in the dock, avoided looking at the screen. In June 2019, after 19.5 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted him of sentencing him to life with a minimum of 28 years. Chelsea Mitchell, who picked Pencil up from Clarendon and helped him alter his appearance with a razor and clippers, was convicted of assisting an offender and sentenced to 28 months.
Keep walking back. Stand still. Do not look at me. Stand still. Officer's going to take you and cuff
Step
you.
to left. To the left. Face the wall. Face the wall. Stay. Do not move.
It's devastated not only Lee's mother, wife, sisters, and obviously we mentioned the son. But that has had a devastating effect on them. One that I hope they'll slowly start to rebuild their lives following this verdict. I think it shows that he is both devious and dangerous, and he set out to kill Lee Pomeroy, and he succeeded, unfortunately, in doing that.
Step outside the door. Come outside the door. Is it Chelsea? Yeah, just come outside the door. Is anyone else inside the property?
Pencil, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia since 2004, was off his antipsychotic medication during the attack. His mother, Ingrid Robertson, testified he often felt pursued or threatened in crowded places like trains. Level 3. The day democracy gasped. On January 6, 2021, in Washington, D.C., around noon, the air was cold and gray. It was as if the Washington sky knew what was coming. One of those days when the chill pierced to the bone, but not as deeply as the anger rippling through the air. Thousands, like a human ocean, had gathered near the White House. They came for the Stop the Steal rally, convinced the election they lost had been stolen. Their signs, their flags, their chants, all echoed one name. The president at the time, Donald Trump, spoke to a crowd armed to the brim with fury. His words were like gasoline poured on a fire. "Don't be weak. Take back our country. We'll walk to the Capitol." At that moment, few realized this walk would lead to something unthinkable. When the speech ended, it was as if a dam had burst. The crowd surged toward the Capitol, where representatives were counting electoral votes to formally certify Joe Biden's victory. At first, it resembled a massive march, but as they neared the Capitol, the crowd's rhythm quickened. Their chants grew wilder. The first spark of tension came with the confrontation with Capitol Police, a thin blue line against a red sea of Make America Great Again hats. The police, laughably outnumbered, tried to hold the crowd back with metal barriers. But that crowd was no longer containable. Rage had blinded them. The turning point, the fatal decision, wasn't the breaking of the first barrier. It was when a rioter with a piece of wood shattered a Capitol window. The sound of that glass breaking was the sound of an unwritten pact shattering. A pact that said you could protest, you could shout, but you couldn't assault the heart of democracy. With that window's fall, the crowd ceased to be protesters. They became invaders. A flood of humanity poured through broken windows and doors into America's most sacred political building. Inside the Capitol, it was like an apocalyptic film. The marble, majestic hallways, once echoing with politicians' footsteps, were now filled with furious shouts, shattering glass, and piercing alarms. The acrid, suffocating smell of pepper spray and tear gas choked the air, making breathing difficult. Rioters were everywhere. One sat with muddy boots on Nancy Pelosi's desk, the House Speaker. Another, in a bizarre horned helmet, stood on the Senate dais, bellowing. Confederate flags, symbols of slavery and civil war, waved in halls where Lincoln once walked. It was a battlefield where history and symbols were violated. Terrified, police scrambled to evacuate lawmakers to safe rooms. For those few hours, the U.S. Capitol had fallen. When the National Guard finally arrived and cleared the Capitol, the scene resembled a graveyard of broken symbols. Debris, torn flags, shattered glass, and bloodstains littered the halls. It was as if a monster had rampaged through, the raw toll. Several died during the attack and related events. Over 140 police officers were severely injured, some with fractured skulls, others with permanent brain damage. Their families, and all of America, watched in shock as the images played on TV. That day wasn't just an attack on a building. It wasn't the broken glass or doors that terrified. It was the shattering of the illusion that some things remained sacred and secure forever. Sean Nelson's rampage. On May 17, 1995, in San Diego, California, Sean Timothy Nelson, a 35-year-old former U.S. Army soldier, endangered countless lives in the destructive rampage. Born August 21, 1959, in Utah, Nelson joined the Army in 1978, training as a tank commander at Fort Knox and serving in West Germany. Discharged in 1980 for disciplinary issues, he returned to San Diego, worked as a plumber, and built a seemingly normal life until personal tragedies, his parents' deaths and the divorce, led to alcoholism and addiction. On that fateful evening, around 6:30 p.m., the disheveled, shirtless Nelson entered the California Army National Guard Armory in Linda Vista. The 2.4-meter barbed wire fence was unsecured due to late-night staff activity. He broke into 3 M60A3 tanks, failing to start 2, but succeeding with the third, a 57.3-ton, 9.5-meter tank capable of 72 kilometers per hour, started with a button. By 6:45 p.m., Nelson drove the tank through to the Armory Gate into Kearny Mesa's residential streets, deliberately smashing utility poles and traffic lights, cutting power to 5,100 homes.
San Diego, California, pursuit of a stolen military vehicle. For sheer terror, nothing has surpassed the day this city was held hostage by a deranged man who went on a rampage with a 100,000-pound tank.
I'll call it the best I can. I'm trying to get this whole mess on videotape. Guy's in big trouble. Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
The police were able to find out that this man had armored vehicle training and had stolen this tank from a local armory. He was also known to have a history of emotional problems.
When I first heard it, I thought it was a joke. This is bad. He's running over fire hydrants. You got hydrants that are blowing water in the air. Get your loudspeaker on, please. This is the San Diego Police Department. Everybody go back to your house and get off the street. He's doing these cars on purpose.
We heard a rumbling sound, and I saw a tank coming down the street. Thought it was a drill or something.
There's cars that are following him, and I have no idea why. Oh my God. Holy. Yeah, he's rolling over just about anything he wants to.
I was in the locker room at the end of my shift, and I heard the call come out on the radio, so I went back and got my patrol car and headed to the area.
This is the San Diego Police Department. Get out of the street and go back in your house. You're in danger.
See if we have any SWAT equipment that can help us out with this thing.
He was coming, we just heard a crunching noise, crunch, crunch, crunch. It was during that time of day where people are getting off work or out of school.
He's coming up towards the school.
Okay, 10-4. It was a lot of people here. A lot of them were just in shock.
I didn't think they would ever going to stop him unless he ran out of gas.
Somebody get a hold of the armory and find out if this thing is loaded.
The gun, he was circling while he was driving, so we thought maybe he was taking aim at something, to fire it.
There's a tank coming down the street. That palm tree is on the front of the tank, and just as I got out in the driveway, he ran over my truck. He took out the telephone poles over there, and he headed down the street and ran over that blue car right there, and then he went back and he ran over the fire hydrant and just kept on going.
It's like a war zone over here.
And I know he hit one occupied vehicle with a family in it, and they just barely escaped before the car was crushed. He hit the pole, dropped them like they were toothpicks, just snapped them down on the ground.
Traffic out of harm's way. This is the worst thing I think. It looks like he's going to go westbound. Get out of the way, get out of the street, you're in danger. This is the San Diego Police Department. These cars ain't going through there.
What kind of a person is inside this tank?
What I was told was he had served in the Army as a tank crewman. So he definitely had tank experience. He had the same school that I had gone to. When I got behind him, it was just before he got on the 805 southbound freeway. He had tried to run over a couple of police cars that got in his way or that he could see and maneuver to, and it was still going at a good 60-mile-an-hour clip up the freeway. They called our SWAT guys to see if they had anything in their arsenal that could stop him.
They do not have the ability. They do not. That's do not.
They called the National Guard Armory to see what they could do to stop it. Those weren't viable options because the Armory was miles away by that time. The tank comes equipped with what they call a nuclear, biological, chemical warfare system in it, which means he has fresh air to breathe, so if we used any chemical agents, they'd have no effect.
At this point, the man in the tank fell back on his military training. He decided to cut off his pursuers by putting a barrier between himself and the police. How? Knock down a bridge across the freeway.
He then headed to Interstate 805, attempting to destroy a pedestrian bridge, which held firm. When he tried crossing a concrete median, the tank got stuck. Police, alerted immediately, pursued with patrol cars and a helicopter. Officers climbed onto the tank, cut open the hatch with bolt cutters, and ordered Nelson to surrender. He resisted, trying to free the tank. Fearing he could restart it and endanger hundreds on the highway, police shot and killed him. Some criticized the police's use of lethal force, but Nelson's brother Scott said, "I don't want to say anything about the police. They were doing their job."
Able at the pedestrian bridge.
When he got on the freeway, he made an abrupt right turn and he struck one of the support pillars that hold up this pedestrian footbridge. My concern was he was trying to collapse the bridge to prevent us from following him. Well, after a while, he gave up on trying to knock this pole out. Police car, better move. And he continued on south. One of my concerns was that he may have live ammunition on board. He might make a stand and start fighting. At this point, it looked like he's trying to maneuver the tank into the oncoming traffic, and if he had done that, we would have had a major chain reaction accident.
Oh my God. Abel, he's on 805 just north of Genesee. Well, we're doing that as we speak. They're trying to get the hatch open right now.
The police knew that the gravest danger still lay ahead. They didn't have time to stop traffic coming down the opposite lanes of the freeway. If this man got the tank free and into those traffic lanes, the results would be horrible.
I used the bolt cutters and cut the hasp on the bolt, twisted the lock off, and opened up the hatch. At that point, we could look down in and we could see the driver. He never answers. He looked back and he made eye contact with Paul, so he knew we were there, and he could see both Paul and I through the hatch.
Right right now he's trying to come undone, and the pavement underneath him is breaking up. It's possible if he keeps jerking this thing side to side, he might be able to break that pavement loose and roll again.
The tank had to be stopped right now, and the driver had to be stopped, and Paul had to get in there and take control of the tank. So I fired one round, and struck him on the shoulder and traveled diagonally down through his body, and it was an immediate fatal wound. Had he not become high center on the center divide, I have no idea what would have happened. I know the people on the other side of the freeway would have been hurt or killed because there wasn't room for that tank and all those cars over there.
A bizarre and terrible reminder of just how powerless we are.
The rampage caused $150,000 in damages, covered by the National Guard. Level 4. Crash onto the nuclear reactor. On October 2, 1986, above reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, months after the worst nuclear disaster in history, a Mi-8 helicopter flew through a sky thick with smoke, the stench of burning and deadly radiation. Near the abandoned city of Pripyat, the area was a ghost town, saturated with lethal radiation that drove people away. Yet the helicopter's crew, many of them former Afghan war veterans, undertook a perilous mission, dropping radiation-absorbing materials like sand or lead onto the reactor's exposed core, still spewing deadly rays. The helicopter, carrying 4 crew members, Captain Vladimir K. Borobayev, Senior Lieutenant L. I. Kristik, and Sergeant N.A. Gonchuk, was on a brief 20-minute flight, one of hundreds conducted by over 600 pilots in 9 days. But this flight was different. A massive crane, left from efforts to build a protective sarcophagus, stood in their path. The helicopter flew perilously close to the reactor, where radiation levels reached 1,000 roentgens per second, enough to kill in minutes. Captured on video by Ukrainian filmmaker Vladimir Shevchenko, who later died from radiation exposure, the helicopter was releasing its load when its blade snagged a crane cable. Losing control, it plummeted into the reactor's ruins. All 4 crew members perished instantly. Many pilots dispatched from bases like Bagram in Afghanistan knew these missions might be one-way. Radiation was so intense that dosimeters, devices measuring radioactive exposure, often failed. The helicopters used in these operations were so contaminated they were abandoned in machine graveyards within Chernobyl's 30-kilometer exclusion zone, still radioactive today. Reports noted the reactor's core glowed red or orange from afar. While some claimed radiation caused the crash, the video, marred by radiation-induced static and noise, revealed the true cause: the collision with the crane. Shevchenko's footage, a haunting testament to the dangers, cost him his life a year later. Ding dong. On the morning of September 19, 2024, around 9 a.m., a female zookeeper at Chongqing Zoo in China was performing routine tasks tending to Ding Dong, a panda born at the zoo in 2015. As Ding Dong tried to pass through a metal gate, the keeper attempted to close it, but the faulty gate kept reopening. In a forceful attempt to shut it, the gate caught Ding Dong's paw. This triggered a furious reaction from the 130 kilograms panda, who lunged at the keeper, knocking her down and biting her arm. The keeper struggled under the panda's weight, trying to fend it off as terrified zoo visitors screamed. After several minutes, she pushed Ding Dong away and escaped. She was hospitalized but sustained no serious injuries. Though pandas appeared docile, they can turn aggressive when threatened, revealing their dangerous side. Level 5. Near-death moment. On May 1, 2023, on Fairfax County Parkway, near Braddock Road, Virginia, a police officer was conducting routine duties. Around 11:38 a.m., the officer had pulled over a gray BMW 750 for speeding at 73 miles per hour in a 50m zone. As he spoke to the driver from the passenger side window, a black BMW hurtling at a reckless speed barreled toward them from the opposite direction, as if the driver had lost all control. It was later determined the car was moving at 120 miles per hour. The driver, a 17-year-old, couldn't manage the vehicle. Like a missile, it veered out of control, crossed the grassy median, and slammed into the gray BMW parked on the roadside. The officer, as if guided by a sixth sense, leaped out of the way just before impact. A split second slower, and he likely would have lost his life. The driver of the gray BMW stopped for speeding was hospitalized with minor injuries. The 17-year-old driver of the BMW M3, along with 2 teenage passengers, sustained minor injuries. Police charged the young driver with reckless driving, a crime in Virginia that can lead to jail time. Reckless hit and run. On October 27, 2017, in a quiet neighborhood in Lithonia, Georgia, at around 6:30 p.m., 9-year-old Ladari Hannah Holmes was playing with a friend on Marboot Forest Drive when a black car, driven recklessly, jumped the curb, ignored a stop sign, and struck her. The impact was so severe that Ladari Hannah was thrown several meters, landing motionless on the ground. Her family, hearing the crash, rushed out in panic. Her mother, Charlotte Bolton, feared her daughter was dead. The driver briefly exited the car, limping around it in a daze, but then fled without aiding Ladari Hannah. She was rushed to the hospital with multiple broken bones, but survived. Another girl playing with her was trapped between the car and a fence, but also survived. DeKalb County Police launched an investigation, urging the public to help identify the driver. The family released CCTV footage, hoping someone would recognize the car. 2 neighbors reported seeing a similar vehicle in the area, but no solid leads emerged initially. Ladari Hannah's father, Darrell Holmes, said, "From day one, I didn't expect her to be talking, didn't expect her to be smiling for a while." By the latest 2017 reports, the driver remained at large, complicated by the lack of nearby traffic cameras. Eventually, Gabriel Fordham, 28, surrendered with his attorney.
As Gabriel Fordham surrendered to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Fugitive Unit, Channel 2 Action News had the only camera at the jail. Police charged the 28-year-old with hit and run, among other charges.
Claiming the crash occurred while he was fending off a carjacker inside the vehicle, Fordham was convicted and sentenced to prison. Store robbery and hostage attempt. On Sunday, June 29, 2025, a terrifying robbery and attempted hostage situation unfolded at a store in St. Augustine, Florida, captured by the store's CCTV. Emma Marine, an 18-year-old working her usual shift as a cashier, faced an unimaginable ordeal. Around midday, Michael Tundador, 31, entered the store, acting suspiciously. After using the restroom and leaving, he returned, tampering with items, tossing some around, and slipping others into his pockets. Emma confronted him, asking if he intended to pay. Days earlier, a theft during her sister's shift at the same store had infuriated their boss, who threatened to fire them. Fearing for her job, Emma bravely blocked Tundador's exit as he tried to leave with stolen goods. This decision led to a harrowing escalation. When verbal threats failed to deter Emma, Tundador resorted to violence, grabbing her throat and dragging her toward a stolen van he'd driven to the store. What began as a petty theft spiraled into an attempted kidnapping with unknown intentions, possibly assault or worse. Emma fought back fiercely, screaming for help and struggling with her hands and feet as she was pulled toward the van. After a desperate fight, she broke free and fled. A witness, Kelly Eason, in the store's parking lot, heard Emma's cries and called 911.
911. There's a lady being attacked. He's trying to put her in the car.
aiding her until police and emergency services arrived.
I saw a young lady screaming, fighting. I waved and yelled at her to come to me, and of course got on the phone with 911.
Tundador fled but was soon apprehended, charged with store theft, vehicle theft, and attempted kidnapping.
She did everything that we could ask her to do. She got very, very loud. She was fighting. She was resisting.
Did she save her own life?
She did.
Emma sustained only minor scratches on her wrist and was treated without serious physical harm. However, the psychological toll lingered, requiring therapy sessions for weeks. She has not returned to work at the store and struggles to resume a normal life, haunted by the trauma of that day. Level 6. Death of environmental activists. On November 7, 2023, protests against a government mining contract with Canadian company First Quantum Minerals, which began October 20, intensified across Panama, particularly on the Pan American Highway in Shame. The contract, passed by Panama's Congress 43-5 and signed by President Laurentino Cortizo, allowed the company to operate Central America's largest open-pit copper mine in the ecologically sensitive Mesoamerican biological corridor for at least 20 years, with a possible 20-year extension. Protesters, including environmentalists, teachers, unions, and indigenous groups, argued the mine would harm the ecosystem and that the deal lacked transparency and public consultation. On November 7, protesters blocked the highway with tires, branches, and flags, causing heavy traffic, food transport disruptions, and $80 million in daily economic losses. Kenneth Darlington, the 77-year-old retired American Panamanian lawyer and professor, was caught in the traffic. Visibly agitated, he exited his car, approached the protesters, and demanded they'd clear the road. When they resisted, an argument escalated. In a shocking moment, Darlington drew a handgun and fired at Abdiel Diaz, a teacher on the spot, and Ivan Rodriguez, 62, husband of a teacher, who later died in hospital.
¿Por qué no dispara? Pues nos va a tener que matar a todos. Eso es una... Nadie está... ¡No! ¡Ey! Delante del policía. ¡Ey! ¡Me están al carro y llevarme! ¡Llama a la policía! ¡Llama! Por favor, envíen rápido.
Chillingly, Darlington then calmly cleared debris from the road, showing no remorse. When another passenger asked if he realized what he'd done, he replied, "Yes, I killed one and shot another." Panicked protesters and witnesses called the police, who arrested Darlington on the scene. Despite his status as a former professor and lawyer, he faced charges of and illegal firearm possession. The victim's lawyer noted that Darlington's age might lead to house arrest instead of prison. Hungry Bull. On May 11, 2024, at a bustling beach near Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, tourists enjoyed a sunny day until an unexpected intruder appeared. A bull rummaging through someone's belongings in search of food. A woman, whose items didn't even belong to her, decided to confront the animal, attempting to reclaim the bags. Onlookers shouted, trying to stop her, but she ignored their warnings, seemingly believing she could scare the bull away.
Ay, la señora.
You are really playing with it right now. Please don't do that. Please! Please get away!
In a video recorded by Maria Leticia Montano Casas, the bull calmly ate from a bowl under a canopy. As the woman approached and grabbed the bags, the bull grew agitated. Despite the crowd's screams, she persisted, unaware of the danger. Suddenly, the bull lowered its horns and charged, striking her repeatedly until she collapsed. Eventually, the bull retreated. The stunned tourists, frozen in fear, could only watch.
We tried to tell you.
The woman's injuries were not life-threatening, but the incident could have been avoided had she heeded the warnings. The bull likely escaped from a nearby farm, as wild bulls are rarely seen on these beaches. The fall. On June 12, 2023 in Whittier, a small city near Los Angeles, Tony Willie, a well-known local skateboarder, was preparing to stun his audience with another daring stunt. Tony, who had spent years filming underground videos with friends, thrived on skating across rooftops. To him, every roof, every ledge or gap was a skate park. But this time, what was meant to be a spectacular trick ended in disaster. Standing on the rooftop of a 3-story building, Tony faced a large gap between it and the neighboring structure. A challenging roof gap even for professional skaters. Having successfully landed the jump 50 times before, he stood with confidence as his friends recorded, everyone anticipating the moment. But as Tony leaped, something went wrong. Perhaps he lost focus, or maybe it was sheer bad luck. His skateboard slipped from under him, and his body spun in the air. He plummeted 3 stories. His friends, initially thinking it was a minor fall, rushed to him, only to find Tony unconscious.
No. Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. Bro, what the fuck?
Both leg bones, one arm, his pelvis and nose were broken, and he suffered temporary amnesia. He was airlifted to the emergency room, where every minute was critical to his survival. In a short documentary, Lucky to Be Alive, published by Thrasher magazine, Tony himself said, "I realized life can end in a moment."
Ever since it happened, just to come fill out the spot, just be next to it, you know? I'm like shaking right now. Just being here.
Yet just 3 months after the catastrophe, Tony, leaning on crutches, returned to his skateboard. Level 7. Horrific news. On April 8, 2017, in the bustling IBC24 news studio in Chhattisgarh, India, the hum of reporters and the glow of spotlights filled the air as always. Supreet Kaur, seated at the news desk, delivered a breaking report with her usual calm. A tragic accident had occurred on a remote road in Chhattisgarh, claiming lives. Unbeknownst to her, this news would shatter her world forever. As a phone reporter detailed the crash,
अंगूर गाड़ी लदी हुई ट्रक आ रही थी, ट्रक काफी तेज थी और डस्टर में 5 लोग सवार थे। लारौद के पास आमने सामने की टक्कर हो गई साइड की टक्कर में और इस बात पे ही 3 लोगों की मौत हो गई है और 2 लोग घायल हैं। जो मृतक हैं वो भिलाई के रहने वाले हैं। ये लोग खुद इधर आए हुए थे। अभी इनके परिजनों को सूचित कर दिया गया है। घायलों का इलाज।
a speeding car had killed 3 people. Before the report concluded, a chilling realization struck Supreet. One of the named victims, Harsimran Singh, was her husband. She had just announced the most devastating news of her life on live broadcast. When the cameras turned off, she would face an unbearable reality. Golden Eagle. On July 16, 2018, near the southern shore of Lake Issyk-Kul in Kyrgyzstan's Tund region, surrounded by the Tian Shan Mountains, an ethno-festival celebrating nomadic traditions featured Berkutchi, traditional hunters showcasing their skills with golden eagles. An eagle owned by a hunter named Salavat was supposed to fly across a field and land on his arm when an unexpected incident occurred. Aziza, an 8-year-old girl likely attending with her family, wandered into a restricted area designated for the birds of prey, dangerous for all spectators, especially a child. Salavat later said everyone was warned to stay in safe zones, but Aziza, possibly out of curiosity or playfulness, strayed near the river into the eagle's flight path. The eagle's sharp talons caught her back, and its beak struck her head, knocking her down. Hunters and trainers rushed to separate the bird from Aziza, who was crying in pain and fear. She was taken to a hospital, where her superficial scratches and wounds on her back and head required stitches, but were not severe. Salabat, with 15 years of experience with the eagle, said in an interview it was the first attack in that time, likely because the bird, trained for hunting, mistook Aziza for prey. Golden eagles, weighing up to 7 kilograms with a 2-meter wingspan, can take down wolves, and Aziza was fortunate to escape with minor injuries. Bloody rage in room 323. On May 9, 2014, in Henan, China, gaming was the lifeblood of male students at Chenzhou Vocational Technical College. Walking the halls of the boys' dormitory, you'd hear the relentless click of mice echoing from rooms. In room 323, 2 young men, 16-year-old Liu Kai and 18-year-old Li Bo, sat glued to their monitors, immersed in League of Legends. Their obsession was so intense that friends worried about their mental and physical health. Once inseparable like brothers, they now clashed in a virtual battlefield, their game spiraling out of control. Liu Kai and Li Bo were die-hard League of Legends fans, known in the dorm for their marathon gaming sessions and heated strategy debates. That night, Li Bo's repeated mistakes, costing them rewards and dropping their rank, drove Liu Kai into a fury. 3 consecutive losses crushed his pride, as if their virtual rivalry erased their real-world bond, turning them into blood enemies. At 6:50 p.m., Liu Kai's shouts filled the room. Their argument escalated, each blaming the other for the defeats. According to their teacher, Liu Kai's arrogance in gaming defined him, as if League of Legends was his entire identity. The fight turned vicious. In a flash, Liu Kai stormed to a small table by his bed, grabbing a fruit knife. At 7 p.m., a blood-curdling scream shattered the dorm's silence. A staff member patrolling the 3rd floor spotted blood seeping under room 323's door. Bursting in, he faced a nightmare. Li Bo sprawled in a pool of blood, his chest and neck riddled with deep wounds, eyes wide in shock. Liu Kai stood frozen in the corner, the bloody knife still in his hand. Police reports stated Liu Kai stabbed Li Bo at least 12 times, mostly to the chest and neck, as if in a frenzied bid to annihilate him. Officers arrived within 20 minutes, cuffing Liu Kai, who didn't resist. He claimed Li Bo had mocked him, pushing him beyond endurance, insisting the game was his life and Li Bo was ruining it. But everyone knew the truth. Liu Kai's uncontrolled rage, unleashed through gaming, was the real culprit. Liu Kai was arrested for intentional homicide, but police withheld further case details from the public.